Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're doing good today. You're welcome again to the podcast. I have a very interesting guest today that is here to discuss a very interesting topic. But before we get into bringing our guest today, what if I told you that the key to unlocking your company's future isn't about strategy, but about gaining more clarity? As technology speeds up, AI expands, and the world grows noisier. My guest today, Charley, believes that the most important edge any company can have is a leader who sees clearly. And in today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Charley Johnson. Hi, Charley. How are you doing today, sir?
Good, man. Good, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. How's your day been? What neck of the woods are you at?
So I'm actually in Utah, so my day is just getting going. It's only 10 a.m. here, so
Cool.
not too early, though. Not too early.
Right. Yeah, 10 a.m. The time over here, it's just past 5 p.m. right now. And I'm in London, by the way, for obviously some people that might be watching us from America or anywhere else in the world. I'm in London at the moment. So Charlie, you strike me like a very interesting guy, someone who thinks a lot, someone who comes up with unique ideas. Just tell me a little bit about yourself.
So born and raised in Utah, and for most people know Utah to be very religious, very Mormon. I was not. My parents just did not have that in them. We weren't Mormon, we weren't Catholic, we weren't atheist, we were nothing. It just wasn't in our awareness. We weren't against religion, we weren't for it as well. So born and raised in Utah, I wasn't good around kids my age. I had the typical childhood. It was good, it was bad, it was in between, it was insecure, a little chubby here and there, and everything else. When I was younger, 16, I was offered a job at a company, and I was able to be around adults. It was a smaller company, but I was able to engulf myself with executives and a small business and how to grow it and how to be a part of it. I went from a very shy, insecure individual to a very confident, excited person to go to work every single day. So I found out at a very young age that I didn't know it at the time, but I was an older soul. I wanted to be around older people. I wanted to be around adults. So when I got into that business, I gained a confidence I didn't know I had within me. I had a CEO that really enjoyed being around me. She saw something in me that I didn't. So I started to build confidence, build the blocks off of that. She passed away unexpectedly when I was 22 on a Saturday. And luckily for the last couple of years, myself and another guy in the company, we were treating the organization such as was ours already. So we took over on a Monday. So we had 150 employees looking at two young kids wondering if the business was still going to survive. During that time, we were blissfully ignorant to what was about to happen. And that was a good thing, because if we knew what was about to happen, we probably wouldn't have taken it over. We would have been too fearful. But we started doing all the trade shows, all the sales, all the marketing. We did everything we should have done. We really did really well. We blew that company up. And we'll get into this topic with consciousness and the universe. After flying 2 million miles over a 7-year period, I developed a fear of flying, and it just came out of the blue. So I wasn't flying anymore. I was the face of the company, but I wasn't doing sales and marketing. It really created tension between myself and my partner. It got to the point where I ended up leaving the business back in 2011. When I left that business, which is actually 14 years, almost to the day, because I left on April 1st, I was in Europe 2 months later. So I didn't have a fear of flying. It was the universe doing everything it could to get me out of that business. And there was no reason for everyone thinking that it needs to be some negative reason to make us make these changes. We were great. The company was great. Employees were great. Everything was working. It was exactly what I wanted from a young age: the safety, the security, the money. But our souls come here with a different life plan, and our egos and our minds think we know. We don't. So it pushed me out. It made sure that I left that organization. After that, I went and ran the Pay It Forward Foundation, the famous book in the movie where people do kind acts for people and they ask someone to do the same thing. Flew around the world for that for about 5 or 6 years. Got tens of millions of people involved with that. That was fun. During that time, though, which will lead into our topic today, I was doing self-development. I had a lot of questions. I didn't understand what the spiritual path was. I didn't understand meditation, consciousness, awareness, spirituality, teachers, Buddhism. Again, the reason I told you about my upbringing was because that was not in my awareness. It was was not something I cared about. All of a sudden, I met an old guy at the gym who came up to me and said, I feel like I've known you from a past life. So again, I've never heard that phrase. All I thought was this existence was just this. That single sentence from a complete random stranger broke open the dam. It took 30-something years for the universe to get to the point where my mind finally opened to what do you mean by that? So that led to questions, that led to him giving me books. It led to him teaching me about meditation. It led to a certain teacher about meditation. I was moving down the path in 3 months very aggressively. When I learned meditation from him, me being me, kind of like a business guy, I had other questions. I asked him, this can't be it. You can't just meditate for the rest of your life. There's got to be something else. I wanted an edge, right? And he said, well, there is someone who can truly be a teacher, a legit enlightened teacher. And again, now looking back at it, the time I had with that individual for a decade is something people would kill for. At the time, though, I was like, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, let me meet him. Who gives a shit?
It was normal. It was just
normal.
Normal person.
Yeah, it was just like normal. It was like his name's Dick Birch. So it was like meeting him, meeting the meditation teacher. And then when I met my current teacher, an individual that is incredibly intelligent, incredibly enlightened, someone that once you cross paths with him, you usually end up just kind of leaving the world behind because he strips it all away. I had a picture of Steve Jobs on my phone. I was a business guy. I loved Steve Jobs. I loved reading about him. I loved how he talked about putting a dent in the universe. I wanted to put my own dent in the universe. When I first met this current teacher, he was identical to Steve Jobs. He had the same glasses, the same rough beard, the same bald head. And I realized in that moment, like that developing a fear of flying, I wasn't looking for Steve Jobs. I was looking for this guy. So again, I'm this blank slate, and all of a sudden I meet this guy, and I just knew in my body, this is it. I told him, whatever you tell me to do, I will do. So he had me reading a bunch of books. Again, I was this blank slate. He had nothing to pull out of me. He didn't have to pull Jesus out of me. He didn't have to pull Buddha out of me. He didn't have to pull Mormonism out of me. He didn't have to pull atheism out of me. He had nothing to pull out of me. I was just clean. And he just went to work, reading all of the religions, reading all of the high-level books, reading all about consciousness, Master Fuller, the Bhagavad Gita, having me learn about the Kabbalah, Judaism, Mormonism, Catholicism. He had me read it all. He wasn't having me read all of that to know it. He was having me understand at a certain point that it's all coming from the same spot. It's all the same. And which then led me to questions of, well, then why is there so much division? Why is there so much conflict? Which then led to consciousness, which we'll go into here. Consciousness births everything.
Yeah. Do you know, when you started the conversation, I was wondering, I'm sure whoever's watching, people watching us now, they're going to be like, yeah, because I like the way you set the premise for the discussion. You set the tone, I think, and that was a very, very incredible intro about this topic today. So the topic we've got today, I'm not sure I mentioned it in the beginning, just to be clear about it, is beyond strategy, why consciousness is the future of business. And in my intro there, I talked about AI, all these things that's happening now that people are trying to strategize, right? Trying to put themselves in a strategic position to be able to drive their businesses forward. But then here you are talking to us about consciousness. You've worked in corporate leadership, like you said there, you've worked in nonprofit, you've studied, you've been a teacher and all that. What's say about this consciousness and how? Talk to us about consciousness in business.
Well, consciousness is everything. There is a group of individuals, very intelligent individuals, that think the brain creates consciousness. That's like, being in your car, listening to the radio and thinking the host is inside the radio, right? The brain's just a receiver. And more of that party are starting to understand that consciousness is actually fundamental. So consciousness is everything, physical and non-physical. Everything on your wall, you, me, our mind, our thoughts, this microphone, the universe, other civilizations, humans, animals, everything is consciousness. Everything. Whether people agree with that, understand that, with the way this world is going, it's going to be proven it's already been proven, but more and more people will jump on that train because it's just going to be very natural. It's like, it's like near-death experiences. Everything in the body shut down, no heartbeat, the brain is brain dead. There's nothing on the machines in the hospital to save this individual's life, but they come out of their body and they can tell everyone what happens in that room. They can tell you what the doctor said, what family members said. Everyone was crying. Consciousness lives on. Consciousness is everything. It was there before we were born. It's there after we're born, right? Consciousness being everything. Businesses have already been using consciousness. You have. We're just ignorant to it. The greatest analogy on consciousness is the fish. A wise fish swimming through the ocean swims by two young fish and says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish look at each other and say, "What's water?" If all they've known is what they don't know water, someone brings it to their attention. Okay, you and me and everyone watching this podcast is swimming in consciousness. So bringing that to the attention of the individual, of an executive, of a CEO, of an employee, starts to allow people to expand their mind, expand their awareness, to understand that what they've been pulling from is consciousness, but we've limited it to our minds, to the conditioning of our minds. And our minds, as everyone listening, are completely overwhelmed. They're full. They're chaotic. They're the reason everyone wants to meditate. They're the reason everyone wants to clear their mind. The reason why they're so overwhelmed and stressed. It's the reason why the world's so divided and conflicted. So the middleman is the mind. All we know is the mind. All we focus on is the mind. All we focus on is mental health. All a teacher does is talk. We need to get to the source of where the mind gets its process, where it gets its information. It's consciousness. Consciousness is going to expand because consciousness is why this planet is shifting. This planet is shifting not because of humans. When we're left to our own devices, look what we do with it. We create a very conflicted, divided, war-torn world. That's the mind. That's not consciousness. That's the mind. The shift on this planet is purposely and forcefully raising 8 billion people up so they start to understand that what we're doing may not be the best way we're going about it. If that's the case, which it is, the same mind that creates the problem cannot solve it. The same tool that we're using to try to solve the world's problems is the same tool that created the problem in the first place. You see the issue? We have to tap back into the source, which is consciousness. Every single ounce of knowledge ever known, ever learned, ever read, ever heard about, ever thought is structured in consciousness, not the mind. The mind is a receiver. So you're just using your mind, 50 to 80,000 jumbled thoughts all over. You need to tap back into the source if you want to solve the world's problems. Consciousness. That's why it's so important. It's bringing to the attention that the fish are swimming in water, that we're swimming in consciousness. Let's use it. Let's utilize it.
Yeah, yeah. You talk about the same mind that created the problem can't solve it. So how do you help businesses? Let's get into the how. How do you help business leaders to tap into a different mindset or that higher level of consciousness that you talk about?
Awareness, like the fish. Hey, boys, how's the water? As soon as they find out they're in water, you cannot unhear that. As soon as you go into a company and say, where you're pulling from is the same tool that created the problem, the mind, and they say, well, then what do we do? Once someone says, it's consciousness, I'm going to help you tap into that. They can't unknow it. They can't unhear it. They can't unlearn it. So the seeds are planted in their consciousness. The universe is continuously watering them. As soon as you hear that, it takes their limited view and expands it. Because then they start saying, okay, what is consciousness? How do I utilize it? Because the pain points for all employees, all executives, all companies are all the same. It's conflict and division. How do we get along more? How do we solve an issue? How do we solve solutions? It's all the same pain point. So if someone comes in and says, well, you solve it by understanding what consciousness is, whether they understand that or not, they're going to ask different questions. They're going to seek how to utilize that vast resource. And then we start to get into, well, this is what you can do. This is what it means. You're in it right now. Start asking different questions. Understand that your ideals, your beliefs, how you see the world is identical to those you think are the opposite of you. If you are a political person and you think your political views are right and that the opposite political views are the ones ruining the world, You have to understand that the other side thinks you're just as crazy as they are. Once you start to plant those seeds, which just seems very natural, like it's not magical, it just changes everything. Someone just needs to point out the obvious, which is consciousness, which is the division, the conflict, how the mind works, how it truly works. And it just shifts the entire organization because you're here, it opens up, it's never going to be here again. It can't. You cannot unhear that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I feel like I need to think deeper. Let's get away from me and get back into the topic. So in this world now, I mean, just look at the world. Everyone is obsessed with AI. Everyone is obsessed with automation. So how do you help companies stay human? Because at the end of the day, what I think is why these innovations are coming up is companies need to keep making profit year on year. They want to keep making more and more and more money. They want to keep declaring profits. So they're looking for ways to automate things. So how do you get them to understand the importance of consciousness and know
Well,
that it is more important now than ever?
Well, it's more important now than ever because they're continuously seeing more tension and more conflict and more division within their organization and the employees because of the fear of AI, because of the fear of how divided we are politically, because of the fear of how divided we are religiously, because of the wars, what they're seeing on TV. There's really nothing in the world right now that gives anyone any peace. Everyone's losing their job. Artificial intelligence is going to take over. Just really understanding what that means. Artificial intelligence is something we labeled it. It's not artificial. That's knowledge. Knowledge is structured in consciousness. That's consciousness. We consider it artificial because we're typing it into a computer and we think we're the only biological things on this planet. We have framed all of what's going on this planet in a way that scares the living hell out of everybody.
So that is human knowledge. Artificial intelligence is human
Where
knowledge.
else is it coming from? It's coming from consciousness. It's not coming from a computer. It's not coming digitally. Now, there's the middleman, like the music that we listen to a radio. Is that artificial? No, it's someone's playing, some band is playing, and we have a receiver that goes through it. That intelligence is all human intelligence that just found a way to collect it and put it together and get it out quickly, get it out more quickly than we can, right? But we created that. It's not artificial. It's not artificial intelligence. It's consciousness at a higher level than we are at right now. It all came from the same source. Now, that really doesn't help people. That knowledge doesn't really help people because artificial intelligence can do so much that we can't do currently as an individual. But giving the individual, the employee, the manager, the company, the executive, an understanding of what you and I just said, whether they understand it or not, whether they believe it or not, it's again information that expands their awareness. It helps them look at it in a better way. This is very divided and conflicted. You start to expand it. Even if it still worries them, it's still an open space. They can look at things differently. They can look at artificial intelligence differently. They can look at consciousness differently. They can look at their world differently. All of that information reduces conflict and division. When you have less conflict and less division, it just makes the world a better place in very subtle ways that helps us keep our humanity, helps us work with AI a little bit better, and helps us have an organization that just sees eye to eye more. There's less conflict and division. I've said it 1,000 times. Less conflict, less division.
Yeah. It actually amazes me how much the world now has gone just out of touch, out of that human touch to things is eroded almost, and it keeps getting worse and worse. So what do CEOs then, what do executives, what do most of them misunderstand about this clarity and the awareness or even the mental state of their team?
What they misunderstand is the last 20 years, there's been a lot of spiritual escapism. So a lot of these organizations, whether they wanted to or not, implemented a wellness program. That wellness program involved yoga. It involved meditation. Sometimes they talked about consciousness. It involved some spiritual man or woman that came in loose-fitting white clothing, wearing a mala bead, saying it's all love. And a business person doesn't see that. They don't calculate with that. They don't resonate with that because it's not all love. It's not. In this world today, thinking that that's the simplicity of it's all love is going to fix everything is not the case. Now, most of these spiritual individuals have not had the training I've had. They have not had the teacher I've had. I mean, my teacher is usually 99% of the people who cross his path leave the world behind and go to the Himalayas. He's a very, very high level teacher. I'm one of the very few that for some reason I chose to stay in the world and find a way to embody this information with the combination of understanding business, nonprofit, and having the time with my teacher. Those three things together means that I can come into a business and help them understand what consciousness is at their level, how it's strategic and how it helps their business, how it helps their employees. This is not spiritual. This is tactical and it's mechanical. Consciousness is everything. This is not about meditation. This is not about a wellness program. This is not about yoga, because most companies are already doing that. Most employees are already tapping into that. But look at the world. Is it really helping?
I would say no.
Exactly. So my point is we've gotten heavy into meditation. Google and everyone's done it. Small, medium, and large companies are doing wellness programs. It's being forced on the company. The CEO doesn't really care about the wellness program. HR is doing it just to make sure the employees don't get pissed off and they stay at the company. They're all doing it for the wrong reasons. The inauthenticity of what we've done for the last couple decades, thinking it was for the betterment of the employee now knows they're full of shit. The veil that allowed us to lie to ourselves is thinning. The employee's bullshit meter is through the roof. They know HR doesn't care. They know the executives, most of them, don't care about these wellness programs. There's a reason why these wellness programs started heavy and now they've kind of broken off because employees didn't get into it. So let's talk about the source of where the wellness program came from. Let's talk about the source of where all these constructs came from. It came from consciousness. And again, I'm not a chief consciousness officer, which I'm proposing, which I'm trying to get every company involved to hire, is not someone that's going to come in like a wellness director. It's not a yoga instructor. It's not a meditation teacher. It's someone who understands this universe and consciousness at a very, very high level, has the clarity to teach it very simply, and very importantly, is neutral. When someone with that level of consciousness comes into an organization, they are an open, blank slate like I was when I met my teacher. I don't care what side you choose. I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care what your ideals are. I don't care what your perspective is. I'm legitimately looking at an individual and saying, where did you come to that perspective? What are your beliefs are? What do you really mean by that? And they, at an energetic soul level, can feel that. When they can feel the authenticity that they can be themselves and they're not being judged and they're not fighting or arguing with someone, they open up. The walls come down. The constructs come down. The self-limiting beliefs come down. Everyone in the room is imposed with that level of clarity and they all start getting along. If there's someone in the meeting who's really been argumentative and they just really are always the devil's advocate, you're going to see that individual argue less, because they're going to start to see the compassion and the empathy, right? A true chief consciousness officer is not about wellness programs. They're not HR. They're an individual who at the highest level can be like a CEO whisperer, can sit in every meeting and bring to that meeting less conflict and division, can be at the watering hole with a customer service agent and hear their stories and listen to that, listen to someone in the company say, I've seen things and I hear things. And for me to be like, that's interesting. Susie does as well. You should go talk to her. Because most people in a company, if they're super religious and they've got someone they're talking to or they manage who's super atheist, now that company, HR will force them to be neutral. They'll force them to care.
They're not
They
gonna
don't. No, they don't. They don't. I'm okay with your beliefs. No, you're not. Look at the world.
Yeah.
The world shows that you're not. We all lie to each other. And again, the clarity that's coming to every person on this planet, they no longer have the ability to lie to each other. They no longer have the ability to suppress that they know the person's lying to them. So it just creates internal conflict, which then shows out externally in the company, which shows you the world today. There's more conflict and division in companies than ever. We always point at profit. We always point at that corporations are evil and money's evil. That's not it. That's a leaf of the tree. We got to get to the root of the issue. If you start to understand consciousness and why the division is created, the ignorance is pushed out of the room, and then everyone can understand more, and they just start to treat each other better. I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah. The more I think, I just remember a movie. I don't know if you've seen it on Apple TV. It's on Apple TV here in the UK. Severance. It's actually a series, not a movie.
Yeah, I've just got done
You've
with
seen Severance?
episode 2. It's a great show. Yeah.
So I just remembered that movie. What sort of, if you understand the plot and everything that goes on, you understand that the staff, you know, their memory is wiped out the moment they're leaving the office. And then when they get back home, so basically they're a different person at work
Mm-hmm.
from who they are in real life. And they don't even know that the two exist. There's this lady that, when there's an issue, they'll be like, go and meet this person. So that's sort of the kind of thing that I was thinking about when you were mentioning it. So I just wanted to understand a bit more, just briefly before we move on. So what's going to be the difference between a chief consciousness officer? What's going to be the difference and a traditional HR leader or a wellness consultant?
Very,
Just
very, very simply, a true chief consciousness officer. And when companies start jumping on board, I'm sure I'm going to start helping with that, helping them find the right person. A true chief consciousness officer is going to have a very unique set of skills. But what they're really going to have is the clarity that no one in the organization has. They're going to have the neutrality. I mean, legit neutral. HR is forced to be neutral so they don't get in trouble. But there's a difference between truly being neutral and doing things so you don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. No one likes HR. No one, you know what I'm like, let me take that. That's very harsh. That's very harsh. They don't like the functionality of what HR forces upon people because of the fear of legality and being sued. So the individual in that position may be a very kind individual, but they're forced to do certain things that doesn't bring cohesion to the company. Now you've got someone like me floating around with clarity, with neutrality, who just starts to break down the walls and break down the self-limiting beliefs, allows people to be themselves, allows them to be authentic, teaches executives to be authentic. That doesn't mean be nice. If you're more direct and aggressive and that's who you are authentically, do that so the employees know that's happening. When you come and try to be nice and you're not nice, the employee can feel it and doesn't want to listen to you. One of the things about Steve Jobs was he was 100% authentically himself and people respected him for it. If you didn't like him, you didn't like him. That's fine. He didn't care. We need authenticity. But the difference between a chief consciousness officer and HR is most likely going to be the time they spent learning about consciousness and having the clarity to understand the neutrality. And also their consciousness is going to be so powerful that when they walk in the room, it's going to impact everyone in the meeting.
Right. Yeah. So they're going to have high level interpersonal skills, high level communication skills, high level. They will probably come to maybe some of the skills that the consciousness officer is going to have. But seriously, for someone to be that person in a huge organization where sometimes you have professionals from different fields, that means that they're going to have to. I would like to understand the kind of, or maybe you can speak to me right now. Actually, what's the level of experience that someone should have to be able to be in that position where they are a consciousness officer?
I think it's going to be, I know this sounds biased, but it's going to be like the skills that I have, the years in corporate to understand the politics, to understand how companies work, to understand that doing right for the company is sometimes not right for the employees, understanding what causes the conflict and the division, understanding sometimes the decision made is not going to be to the benefit of all, understanding that life isn't fair, but also understanding that why we act the way we act is because of consciousness and the lack of clarity and division. That understanding only comes from being with someone like a teacher like mine that legitimately strips everything away. Because we have a lot of charismatic executives. They can talk a really good talk and they're Harvard educated. They got a 160 IQ, but they're also Republican or they're also Democrat. Or they're also Catholic, or they're also Muslim or Judaism, right? Those, I don't have an issue. I truly do not. I'm telling you, right, anyone listening, I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't care either way. Don't care if you're atheist. Don't care if you're Catholic. I wrote a book called Truth Has No Sides. But when you do choose a side, which once again, let me remind everyone, I don't care. You have alienated yourself away from everyone who doesn't believe what you believe. You can say to each their own, but does this world look like to each their own is working? When we have
Good question.
sit down with an executive sits down with someone they manage, and both sides know how they feel, what they believe, they've already got walls up, whether they understand that or not. They're not fully open. The executive has to, because of HR, has to be like, I really value your opinion and everything else. But if push came to shove, they're going to choose a side. They're not going to get along. Both sides are going to feel that, and they're not going to work cohesively together. They're just not. So a true chief consciousness officer is going to be neutral, legitimately, energetically at the soul level, and can be felt by every employee in the company. They're going to be neutral. They're going to be an open space. And whether the employee feels it consciously or subconsciously, they're going to be able to be their authentic self, which then leads to helping executives be more open, which helps them understand why they feel the way they feel about someone who doesn't believe what they believe. And one of the most important things is planting the seed of, okay, so you're Republican. You think the Democrats are ruining the world. They think you're ruining the world. So if you're right, so are they. If they're wrong, so are you. Planting those seeds in them, whether they agree with it or not, whether it upsets them or not, it plants a seed to at least show them that, holy cow, he's right. They think like I think. It's coming from the same source. My religion came from the same consciousness yours came from. Again, it may take time for them to be okay with it, but it plants a seed and it creates less division. That subtle shift permeates all. It's not about removing bias, but it's a natural byproduct when you start to expand it. It's just natural because you're here and then you're here. One of the greatest things I can say is if you're driving down the road in a car and the windshield of the car is caked with grease or Crisco, you can't see. So you just see figures, you see shapes. So you're guessing what's on the other side, and you're just hoping you don't hit anything. That's the vast majority of the world. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's not better. It's not worse. That's just the way it is. We don't get mad at an 8-year-old for being in second grade, and a 16-year-old in 10th grade is not better than the 8-year-old. It's just different times of life. When you start to remove the grease from the windshield, when you start understanding consciousness, it starts to remove grease. It gives you clarity. You start to see legitimately what's on the other side. And when you really know what's on the other side, the fear, the bias, the division, the conflict that I'm better than you, my God's better than yours, it just, as a natural byproduct, dissipates. It just naturally dissipates. Just like an 8-year-old who believes in Santa Claus, and then when we're 12, it naturally goes away.
Yeah. That's very, very, very interesting topic here that that you've got. Very interesting. I would say at this point, a niche area of study that, hopefully, years to come from now is going to be attributed to a certain Charley Johnson or, and your teachers there. So yeah, this is really interesting. Again, Mr. Charlie, really, really, I'm happy that you joined us today here on the podcast. Yeah, just moving on. You mentioned that knowledge is structured in consciousness. And so how does elevating consciousness within a team affect, how's it going to affect the creativity and the strategic thinking within that team?
There's nothing on this planet that could make someone their cognitive ability increase, their creativity increase, because right here is where most people are. So you've got 50 to 80,000 thoughts. You got this little box of the mind, and you have cut yourself off from this vast resource because you're locked in. NASA did a study, and they followed a few thousand kids. 98% of those kids were considered genius at 4. By the time they were adults, it was below 2%. There you go. We think we're educating and learning ourselves into intelligence, but we're actually taking this vast resource of consciousness, which is infinite, and we're shrinking it down as we get older because I'm Catholic and you're atheist. I don't believe what you believe. I'm a Republican. My parents taught me this. My teachers taught me this. I watched this video. I was conditioned by my friends. You're taking all, and we're labeling it and we're conditioning it into this box. When you start to tap back into this vast resource, you now have access to everything. Let me just make this very clear. Everything you've ever learned, anything you've ever watched on a video, YouTube, anything you've ever read, anything you've ever been taught, anything you've ever thought, anything that anyone's ever said or told or or theorized about, it came from consciousness. Where else could it come from? So knowledge being structured in consciousness, and you are consciousness, you are that knowledge. If you're here in your mind locked off, you've blocked yourself from the knowledge. You break this open, you expand your awareness, you gain access to any knowledge you want. It's very simple.
You know what you said there about when people start defining themselves to be something, attaching themselves to things, their IQ reduces. It just brings to my mind to something that I was just talking about, funny enough, with some friends of mine recently. And we were just discussing, we were just a general discussion we're having, and we're asking each other, but why is it that people who are not religious, generally, you were just mentioning a few people that they knew, people who are not religious, generally, well, maybe not generally, but based on the ones we know, they do better in terms of, they are really good at their job, because, and we're able to describe it in a way, well, me anyway, I came up with a theory that it could just be because their mind is open. They're not boxed into anything. They have an open mind to, they don't really care about, maybe spending their time to go and pray to a God that they believe do not exist. So, they're just open to learning things and growing with things. I don't know what you think about that.
So you're asking why are people who are less religious or better at their jobs?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think like anything on this planet, I wouldn't say that's the case, right? Because we can find examples of both. There's very intelligent people who are devout Catholics. There are very intelligent people who are devout Muslims. There's very intelligent people who are devout Mormons, very intelligent people who are atheists, right? And that hasn't been the issue, I don't think. And we're always looking to connect dots, and I'm not disagreeing with you in a bad way. I'm just, when it comes to consciousness, and when you have the ability with the clarity and the neutrality, everything that you could possibly come up with, like that question, can be broken down, which is a great thing. Because every time we say, why is it that someone is better at this than this person, it puts them into a box, puts it into a construct, and it removes other solutions. It removes other parts of consciousness and divides. So what I've seen, and when I first came onto this path and with my teacher, I was thinking the same thing. I was trying to find a way of how business could be better, how I could be better. Is it about religion? Is it about how they sleep at night? Is it about working out? I was trying to find life hacks like everyone else. Like you said, why is it the people we know who are less religious are better at their jobs? Well, that is something that we see in our minds. That's something we think. So we're going to go find that. Right?
Yeah.
Just like a Catholic's going to say, this is the one true church. I saw Jesus in my dreams. Everything else is bullshit. That's where their awareness points. Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, it's going to be the same. Republicans, Democrats, your mind is conditioned to be biased naturally without us knowing it. So if you have a thought in your head, like you just said, which I'm not saying is wrong, you're going to naturally find articles. You're going to find people who agree with it. You're going to find certain ways to say, see, I told you I was right. But just like a Republican says, see, I told you I was right, the Democrat comes back and says, see, I told you I was right. All of that type of stuff. This is where the power of a chief consciousness officer comes in for an organization and for the individual, because that's what would happen. Because I'm going to get questions like that from executives. I'm going to get questions like that from the company. They're going to say, why are we going to pay you a small fortune salary? What are you really going to bring to the table? This. Because they're going to throw questions at me, and I'm going to break them down to a neutral stance so they can understand that may not be the case. And when they say that's not the case, we break open awareness. Because as soon as you say that non-religious people are better at their jobs, you're here. You're here without even knowing it. So you could say, yes, some are, but some aren't. Some of the most intelligent people who have done incredibly breathtaking work that's changed humanity were very religious. Some people who were changed humanity and had incredible theories were atheists. Some people were neutral. All I'm saying is there is no rhyme or reason to us continuously thinking by writing books about happiness and business and trying to make life hacks. Everyone thinks there is, but there is no legitimate rhyme or reason as to what works. Because I know a lot of really successful executives that are fat and out of shape. And then you've got executives who are healthy and they say the only reason I'm successful is because I'm healthy. Bullshit. No, that's not the case. It's not the case.
Yeah.
It's not. There is nothing
It's
on
more
this
than that.
planet. Yeah, there's always more than that, because this planet is a 3D physical realm that was built off of experience. And we can go about being successful or not successful We can go about being intelligent or non-intelligent. We can go about being healthy or not healthy. It's like the old lady that's 110 years old, and the interviewer asks, like, how did you get to 110 years old? And she says, well, I smoke and drink every day from the age of 80. And everyone's like, what? Because everything else in the world is saying, don't smoke, don't drink, and you'll live longer. Yeah. When you're 40 years old, you get hit by a bus. What's the rhyme or reason there? So again, this neutrality of understanding the universe and consciousness literally can break down any argument. So then it helps the individual or the corporation or the executive team to be more open to different ideas and solutions. Yeah. Because
Interesting.
every time we put a construct on saying that person's better at their job because they're not religious, we have minimized the solutions or the abilities to work with that individual.
Okay, I mean, again, very, very insightful, really insightful. So how do you then balance being strategic and spiritual without losing credibility in the boardroom?
Well, again, you have very rarely heard me talk about spirituality. So I don't consider myself spiritual because spirituality is just the newest religion. Spirituality, people will say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Okay, so you're atheist to the Catholic. You're heads to the tails of the coin. What a true chief consciousness officer, someone who can really impact an organization and its employees, they're going to ask the question, where did the coin come from? Spirituality came from the same place that Catholicism came from. Spirituality came from the same place that all these spiritual people left behind because they thought it was too structured. Spirituality has become just as dogmatic and structured as religion, and they can't even see it. Right?
Especially as it grows, especially as
Yeah.
something grows,
Yes.
it becomes more, okay, that's
Structured.
our head. Okay, this is
Dogmatic.
what we believe.
Yep. Yeah. So how do you bring that into an organization? Well, they've already tried bringing that into an organization with wellness programs, and some of them work, some of them don't. Again, a chief consciousness officer, and I've said this thousands of times because I really appreciate individuals like you giving this exposure. I'm not spiritual. Consciousness is not spiritual. This is not about meditation. It's about a mechanical, tactical understanding of the vast resource of which we are and how we utilize what we are in a way that makes us, the employees, and the company better without creating division and conflict.
Yeah. Very, very insightful. So what would you say to leaders, to business leaders who think that this approach is soft or that it's abstract, Yeah.
I love it.
And then that it's gonna affect their bottom line,
Well,
you know,
let me
which
put
is
it this
profit.
way. It's going to affect their bottom line in a good way because right now they've got very contentious employees. The division is being there's the gap is widening. The CEO can feel it. The executives can feel it. They know they need to do something different, but they don't know what to do because they're going to do the same thing that they've done in the past. The same mind that created the problem can't solve it. They don't have new tactics. They don't have anyone on staff that understands what I understand, right? So all I'm saying is they don't really have much to lose. Why don't you just try it? I'm not gonna prove it to you, to executives, because they probably don't understand consciousness like I do, and they probably look at what I'm talking about. In their mind, they have a construct of spirituality, meditation, wellness. It didn't work, so this guy's gonna be the same thing. Do I look like a spiritual guy? Do I talk like a spiritual guy? I'm sitting here swearing. I'm very passionate. I understand things that spiritual people don't. Like, I understand business. I'm gonna be able to speak your language. I'm gonna be able to help you at your level. I'm gonna be able to help you understand what this means. I'm not going to sit there in your office and say, okay, close your eyes. It's all one. It's all love. No, that's not what no. I understand what you understand about what you need to get out of your employees and what your employees want out of you. I understand this is an opportunistic thing. I understand this is a transactional thing. I'm not trying to bleed out what you are because companies have structure to build profit, but we can do it in a healthier way. I know that. I'm not saying we need to get rid of money and corporations and everything. This world, we shouldn't get rid of religion. There's billions of people who enjoy religion. You take religion away, this world's 10 times worse. You take corporations away, this world's 1,000 times worse. I'm not saying to rid or break anything. I'm saying let's find a better way and combine all of the worlds. Yeah.
Infuse everything. Okay, so with this one we are in now with mental health and burnout on the rise, right? We hear it all the time, especially with COVID. So what role does consciousness play in creating sustainable company, culture and performance? What role? And I feel like we've talked about this a little bit already, but just briefly as we move on.
Well, they've already worked trying to make a company sustainable and build a culture in a company from the level of consciousness that they already have now. Imagine expanding that. Imagine putting the ability to be sustainable and build a culture and to help your employees and executives on steroids. They have, again, they can be all Harvard grads. They can all have 160 IQ. But if you're driving down the road with Crisco on your windshield, you're guessing what's on the other side. So you're guessing how to build a good culture. You're guessing how to be sustainable. You're guessing what your employees want or what your customers want. Imagine being authentic and being legitimately understanding what they want at a very high soul level. You want to really attach to people and really build a culture, understand what they want at their soul level, because as this world changes, and it's changing faster than anyone could ever imagine, and the change that's happening is internal, it's not external. And most executives and companies only know external. They don't know internal. Imagine the shift. And when people come out of this and it changes, they are not going to be able to do what they've done in the past. Someone on staff like me, a chief consciousness officer, is going to help them make that change and that transition in a way that doesn't prolong the division, doesn't prolong the problem, doesn't prolong the inauthenticity that they're trying to guess what everyone wants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, do you have any success stories? Like, can you give us maybe one real life example of a breakthrough, business breakthrough that has
Yeah,
happened as a result of your training?
I'll give you one that's very simple and it translates to any organization because it involves executives, meetings, and quickening of what they want. So I was helping a club soccer team here where I live. They had been talking about certain things they want to do for over a decade. They want their own facility. They want to do certain things. They want to have a sponsor on just so many things. And they've talked about it for over a decade. Well,
Mm.
because of our boys getting involved with their club, I just wanted to know who the people were that run the club. I just wanted to get to know them. I like to know people. Well, we did some lunches and we started to understand. I started to hear the story from all the board members, from all the presidents, from all the founders. I wanted to know. Within the first month, more was accomplished on the facility, on finding the sponsor, on putting forward what we want than in the last 10 years. When you have that clarity, when you have no conditioning, no bias, you're not in a meeting for an hour having 7 people ask the same question in a different way and getting 7 different answers so that you come out of the meeting, nothing happens. Because of the clarity, because of what consciousness is, because of understanding and seeing very clearly what people want and what they're trying to accomplish, we can go into meetings in the first 5 minutes. I can listen and I can say, this is exactly what we want. We don't need the other 55 minutes. Because if you look at most meetings, it's a bunch of executives that just want their voice heard. I'm not saying this is wrong. They want their voice heard, and they're basically all asking the same question, just in different bias, different conditioning, different ways, different thoughts. And it's just creating a complete waste of time, and they're filling space because it's an hour long, and then nothing really happens. All that really happens is confusion. You see really good executives, they don't do meetings. Or if they do a meeting, it's very quick. It's 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Get to the point, get me the hell out. They're really good. That's great. That's really great. But with the organization and with a buddy of mine, a guy I crossed paths with a couple months ago, he's working on some stuff to go after healthcare, to make healthcare better. And he had been talking about this for years. Well, we've already pushed things and got his ideas rolling within the first month because he would tell me what his story was, what his fears were, what he wanted to do. And I could say, what do you mean? Why are you waiting for that guy? What do you need Josh for? You don't have anything to offer to Kevin? You do have something. This is what we're going to do. Like just having that direct clarity, not having a dog in the fight, being unbiased, listening to an executive or in a meeting and not caring what someone's wife said about me 10 years ago. Not caring that someone wore a shirt that doesn't agree with me, not caring that knowing that that person in the room's Republican and I'm Democrat. I can cut through all of that bullshit. Just like my teacher did with me. When he first started teaching me, I was a blank slate. He didn't need to spend 2 years stripping out religious figures or dogma that would help me understand this neutrality. I'm neutral in every meeting.
So that helped you.
It helps every organization. Imagine even when you spend a small fortune on consultants, the consultant is still picking sides. The consultant may be religious or not religious. They may be political or not political. They can say they're neutral. They're not. They don't know how to be neutral because they chose a side. So a consultant comes in for a week or 2 weeks. They don't understand the dynamics of the company. They don't understand the dynamics of employees. They don't understand the beliefs. They haven't had those intimate conversations with everyone to understand their fears, worries, and insecurities. So they just make suggestions and then they leave. They're a chicken. They're not a pig. They've laid an egg. They haven't taken skin off to cook bacon. So imagine having someone on staff who knows the intricate details, the intimate details of everyone in the organization, what their fears are, what they see. That is where true change happens. Having someone on staff that can really bring that neutrality and that consciousness to everybody. What I just said in those simple examples of the buddy working on healthcare and the soccer club, it translates to every organization. I will guarantee it.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm still very intrigued. I'm obviously going to, and I encourage everyone watching, please ensure that you, obviously, we're going to put the links in the description to your books, to your website, to anything that you want to share. So I encourage everyone, go and have a look at, those links and make good use of it. You're talking about clarity because you've used clarity a lot. What does it really mean in the context of business, of business decisions? So how does one recognize when they are leading with clarity versus when there is ego or fear?
It's very subtle, but it comes back down to the car. If you're driving down the freeway and you've got Crisco on your windshield, you have to lead from ego because you have to guess what's on the other side. When you're wiping the grease off the windshield and you start to see more clearly, you're not guessing anymore. You're seeing directly what the fact is, and you'll be able to open yourself to basically double the solutions. Meaning, when you're not clear and you're full, when you've chosen a side, and I know people get sick of this example, but when you're Republican, someone who's Democrat could have the cure for cancer, and you're going to doubt it just because of what their beliefs are. An atheist is always going to doubt a Catholic. A Catholic's always going to doubt an atheist. You can say you're not, but the reason the world is so war-torn, conflicted, divided, and why we don't get along politically or religiously or basically in the world is because we've chose a side and the other side's wrong. And the other side believes we're just as wrong as they are. So an executive leading from clarity comes with the having someone like me on staff to talk about that. That's all this is an awareness of what you think is just as ignorant as the other people you think are ignorant. Again, that may upset them, but it plants a seed and it takes their awareness to this. At least it expands and they're like, okay, I'm not going to stop being Catholic or Republican just because of what you said, but I understand what you're saying. So when that happens, they're going to be more open to more solutions from people they may not have been open to in the past. Because these people can be kind, they can be intelligent, but they don't realize how biased and conditioned they are to listening to other people. We're terrible listeners. Terrible, because our walls have already been up to protect ourselves from our ideas and our beliefs. And again, you can be Harvard grad, 160 IQ, but you have walls up. That cuts you off from solutions. It cuts you off from clarity. Managing from clarity is the awareness of both sides of the argument.
So are there any signs, that shows you that an organization is ready for a chief consciousness officer? Or is it just, any organization can have it at any time, at any level or scale?
Any organization is ready for this right now. I had someone comment on a post I made that the world's not ready. Not everyone's ready for awakening. Well, the construct of awakening is very high level. Okay. I understand there's different levels. You can awaken from 2nd to 3rd grade. You can awaken from elementary to junior high. You can awaken from 10th grade to 11th grade. Awakening to most people is this blissful, open, I see God, I got this, I'm all one, it's all love, I don't need money, corporations are evil, I'm going to go meditate for the rest of my life. I'm going to be more heart-centered, which is perfectly fine. They're in their minds, in their level of awakening, they're right. But the vast majority of the world is not ready for that type of awakening, nor do they care about awakening, nor do they care about meditation, nor do they care about spirituality or being heart-centered. It's like asking an 8-year-old, are you excited to drive? What? I don't give a shit about driving. I care about the neighbor girl that has a crush on me. I'm 8 years old. I care about Santa Claus. So someone who is very spiritual coming into an organization, they're going to be at a very high level and they're going to think everyone's there and then no one's ready for it. Well, you've already cut yourself off. You've already created division. You've created bias. You've created a box and a construct that's not worth it. You're spiritual, just like anyone's religious. A chief consciousness officer is ready right now to talk to anyone at any level and help them awaken at any level they're ready for. If you take a second from a second grader to third grade, if everyone in the organization shifts subtly up and more clear, that will have an impact on an organization you cannot fathom. It doesn't mean they get more intelligent, because intelligent people with Crisco on the windshield just means they're more blind and they're going to think they know. They don't. But imagine taking everyone in the organization at their own readiness, at their own level, and helping them understand that they can tap into consciousness and awaken at their own level. That is the most powerful thing a company can do right now, without fail. You can go run them through a sales training or marketing training, Crisco on the windshield. Their mind's already full. You can pour as much information. HR can force them to do certain things they don't want to do, but their mind's full. It's just being wasted out the sides. You've got to open their mind. You've got to open the box. You've got to open their awareness so that when they're ready, they can graduate to third grade, to fourth grade, to seventh grade, to college, to whatever. But it's, again, when these people hear me talking about this and they say the world's not ready for consciousness or awakening, how you believe it is, you don't understand there's levels of consciousness on this planet. You don't understand there's a difference between an 8-year-old and a 15-year-old. You don't understand at the level of clarity that I understand. That's why I'm so passionate about this. I'm not coming from a spiritual level. I'm coming from a tactical, mechanical understanding of how universe, consciousness, and everything works, because everyone's a part of it. It's not a spiritual thing. It's not a religious thing. It's not. No, this can awaken anyone. The dog next to me can awaken to a certain level. Everyone can awaken at a different level.
I mean, I feel like we've gone to, I've talked about businesses, we've related obviously consciousness to business, which is the main topic that we'll have today. But let's go full circle and come back to you now. Let's talk about some of your personal and philosophical reflections that you might have, regarding the topic. So, you've worked closely with a teacher that you mentioned earlier on, and when we started. You said for over a decade that you did work with this teacher. So what's the biggest lesson that has shaped your approach to business and leadership?
It's all the same. It's all the same. It's all coming from the same source. We are the ones that create the differences, the perceptions, the division, the conflict, that my idea is better than your idea, my God's better than your God, my politics are what's saving the world, yours are ruining it. If you have the ability to read all of these books and understand they're all saying the same things in different verbiage, that's a very powerful thing for this planet that's so divided. He taught me and had me read hundreds of books, not to fill me with knowledge, but to prove to me that it's all the same. That's it. He stripped everything out of me, all bias, all conditioning, which I didn't have much to do in the first place without knowing it. But if you really see it, we need less division and conflict. And if someone can help you understand that in a very simple form, without pushing you, without being biased, without forcing you, with them understanding that you don't have a dog in the fight, you're just helping them be better. What's better? Truly, what's better for the world right now? For two warring sides to understand they're identical to each other, to help them at least be aware of that. Like, this universe knows that we can't take everyone to the top. They would fry their nervous system, but we can slowly help them awaken at whatever level. And it doesn't need to be spiritual. It just needs to be awareness, consciousness, awareness. Be aware that the other side believes what you believe about them. The most powerful thing my teacher ever did was show me that. He proved to me, well, he was just pointing me in the direction. It was very clear to me it's all the same. It's all the same.
Yeah. So basically, it is all the same. And honestly, I do agree with that. When you dig deep into it, you understand that it is all the same, and that's why we're all the same. And that's why, even though yes, our face might look different, our appearance might look different, but we do generally come with the same features as human beings. We come with eyes, we come with hands, we come with legs. Every human being, or most human beings, will have a heart. All these features, I think, the things that binds us all together.
Mhm.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is all the same. But yeah, just one question, follow up on that before I move on to the next one. So, do you believe, just looking back at it now, at all those years that you spent with your teacher and the things you learned, do you believe if you, let's say if you were a religious person, let's say you were Catholic, would you have, um, would you have been able to receive the same way that you did receive the information? Would it have been the same, do you think?
I don't know. Years ago, I would have said no, and I would have offended every Catholic on the planet. But there may have been people in different religions or different beliefs that would have met this very powerful guy, and they would have been okay being stripped of their ideals and their beliefs in a way that made them neutral. All I can say is when you look at the world and two sides argue or they have a discussion or debate, have you ever seen either side change? No.
Rarely.
No.
It's just about throwing points and not about, yeah,
No, we don't listen. So
yeah.
I would assume it would have been tougher because we usually take certain steps. Like a Catholic leaving the Catholic Church usually goes to someone who's someone who left the church as well and is mystical. We take these baby steps. That is exactly what we should do. But yeah, I'm sure I wouldn't be who I am today if I wasn't as neutral as I was before I met my teacher. I just wouldn't. I would have still, it's very hard to get rid of conditioning and bias. Because again, let's go back to what I talked about. We're not taking everyone aggressively to no beliefs in neutrality. We're just taking them from second to third. We're taking them from sixth to seventh. It's a subtle shift, but it makes a massive difference on the collective scale of 8 billion people.
So, yeah. So, how do you define success in your own words and from your experience over the years?
Success is whatever the individual believes success is. Because the incarnation that we chose at the soul level all has different understandings. There's a lot of people who say their relationship won't fulfill you, money won't make you happy, and all these things. For them, at the end of my book, the last chapter of my book is saying, if what you think is going to make you successful is a relationship, a husband, a wife, or something that you just can't figure out right now, you should go get that. If you think what's going to make you successful is money, you should go do that. I'm never going to say that money won't bring you happiness because there's a lot of people on this planet that money brings great happiness and great fulfillment and success. Whatever your soul thinks that success is for you, you should go do that because we are not these 80 years in this physical body. We came here to experience this. We came here to learn, but there's different things that different souls came to learn. And success is going to be different for everyone. For me specifically, success for me it seems to be helping people understand consciousness and bringing less division and conflict to the world. Because that's what I'm doing right now. So success for me has changed over the years, and I expect it to change over the coming years. So I can't just, like most people will define what it is for the rest of their life. I can't do that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. My guest also asked me about what I thought about success, and that was the answer I gave as well. It's because we're all coming from different perspectives. So, and our bar as well of success is different. Different people have, some people, their success is that, oh, they're able to afford a car and a house, and so it just depends on, I think, how one sees it. For leaders listening today, what's one practical step they can take to begin leading with more awareness and clarity? Just one. I know there may be a lot, but let them have one. Then they can meet you for consultation.
Understand, this is at a human life level, not business, but it bleeds into business. Understand that the people you believe are ruining the world or are wrong or are not believing what you believe and you don't like them. They believe the exact same thing about you. Now that is not a definitive perspective that leads them to some 5-step program, or all I'm saying is ask that question and see what it does to your bias, your conditioning, your awareness, and how you treat others. Because even if you don't agree with that and think this is completely wrong and I'm ignorant to say that because we live in a world of conflict and we need to be competitive, just planting that seed means that whoever listens to this cannot unhear it. And without them doing anything of their own, the universe will grow that seed of even hearing my voice saying, You know the other side believes what you believe about them. And if you think they're wrong, they believe you're wrong. How the hell does the world get better with this much division? You're creating, you think you're fixing things, but you're creating just as much division as the people you think are wrong. Agree with me or not, I've planted the seed. That's all I can do.
Yeah, they need to think and come back to you to help them with the. So then let's just as we approach home stretch now, what legacy would you like to leave?
That's not something that really crosses my mind, because I know when this physical body passes away, it won't matter.
Yeah.
I guess in this world right now, I want to help people expand their consciousness. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would say that's a noble answer, because obviously good people, you know, they're not about helping people right now and not what history is gonna remember them for, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so obviously we've approached home stretch now. We're at the end of this whole thing now. Thanks again for coming on the channel. Really, really appreciate you. So how can organizations, for individuals, organizations, how can they begin their training with you? How do they reach out to you?
Well, like you said, we'll put the links in the description of the video. And I do have a website, but what I like people to go to is my LinkedIn. So I'll give you that direct link that goes to my LinkedIn page. It kind of talks about what this is all about, what a chief consciousness officer, they can read the post of how it implements into a company, and they can call me. My cell phone's on there. My email's on there. Charley, CharleyPIF@gmail.com. If you want to reach out, you've got a question, you want to see how this can be a part of your business, I love talking about this stuff, and I can show you almost immediately what it's going to do for your organization and for your employees. And I'd love to start getting to the point where a good sized company makes the hire, because once they do, they're going to be the pioneers, and their competition and the other organizations that look up to them or look to try and beat them are going to wonder what that position's about, and they're going to do the same. And if more organizations have that position, I promise you it will impact 8 billion people, because we're all buying and consuming and doing things, and we all want to make the world a better place. When you finally put someone in the organization who's not divided, who's not spiritual and thinks everything's evil, or vice versa, but they can combine the worlds of corporate and everything else, that will impact the world more than anyone. It will raising consciousness in a world where corporations and government and all that's not going away, but truly making it better and less divided and less conflicted. That is going to impact every person on this planet. So I'm looking forward to a forward-thinking company to make that hire. I'd love to be that individual. And then I'd love to find other chief consciousness officers and help them get hired by other organizations, and help other organizations understand and hire that person correctly, male or female.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charley, for coming on the channel today. Guys, what an enlightening conversation. What a great conversation that we've had here today. One of the few people that are truly defining what it means to lead in this modern world. From boardroom decisions to inner clarity, today's talk reminds us again that business is not about what you do, but it's about how you think and who you become while doing it.
Awesome.
So guys, if you've been inspired by any of the ideas today, do well to please contact Mr. Charley Johnson and follow his work on LinkedIn. Look at the links on the description below and get a copy of his book as well. And, do well to follow his work. Guys, thank you very much. If you've made it to the end of this video today, thanks very much for watching up to now. And until I see you in the next one, don't forget, subscribe, to the channel, share the video, comment, ask questions that you would want Mr. Charley to answer. Yeah. And see you next time. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you, man.